Hey,
Okay, I'm gonna call this meet. I'm gonna call
sorry.
this meet.
Jonathan, Gary Frisch is in the room with me. He's not on the screen, but
Okay, he
Okay.
was a second ago. All right, but he's here.
yeah, great.
That's as good as here. So I'm gonna call this meeting of the East Veterans Elementary School Building Committee to order. This meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with the state open meeting law, consistent with the governor's orders. Somebody just shared this screen. Now I can't see what I'm reading. Okay.
This is what you're reading right here, I think.
Yeah, okay, all right. You just think of everything, Brian. And governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning certain gatherings, such as an in-person meeting of this school building committee would not be possible. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. But every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. And our first order of business is a roll call for attendance. Yash, if we could have that, please.
Good evening to one and all. Jonathan Pope,
Here.
thank you. Ben Lemus,
Here.
thank you. Katie Clancy,
I don't see her.
okay. Richard Safai,
Here.
thank you. Matthew Fusco,
Here.
thank you. Amy Pescarello,
Here.
thank you. Grant Harris,
Here.
thank you. John Dunn,
Here.
thank you. Gary Fish,
Here.
thank you. Caitlin Nunes,
Here.
thank you. Tony Gross,
Here.
thank you. Stacy Capone,
Here.
thank you so much.
Okay, we have 10 members in attendance, and that is a quorum. And as I said before, first order of business is the approval of minutes. November 10th. Are there any corrections or omissions? Okay, seeing none, I will make a motion that we approve the November 10th meeting minutes as presented. And I so moved.
Second.
Yes, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Jonathan Pope,
Yes.
thank you. Ben Lemus,
Yes.
thank you. Richard Safai,
Yes.
thank you. Matthew Fusco,
Yes.
thank you. Amy Pescarello,
Yes.
thank you. Grant Harris,
Yes.
thank you. John Dunn,
I was not in attendance.
okay. Gary Frisch,
Yes.
thank you. Caitlin Nunes,
Yes.
thank you. Tony Gross,
Yes.
thank you. Stacy Capone,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, it's 10 in favor and 1 abstain, and it passes. Our next order of business is the approval of invoices. And we have, I will turn it over to Brian to go through the invoices.
Thanks, Jonathan. All right, here's our first invoice. So we have 4 total to approve tonight. This first one is the last pay requisitions from WT Rich.
Brian, you're sharing the wrong screen.
Oh, I am. This is. Oh, okay. What screen do you see? Try this again. All right, do you see this now?
It's just sideways.
Yeah, anyway, but it was in your package. So anyway,
Yeah.
This is what this invoice was for. This is for all the work that's been completed in the month of November. And the total on this invoice is $3,018,501. Then the second invoice we have is for Doran Whittier. This is invoice number 43 in the amount of $91,040. And this is for their work in November, which includes contract administration work and also some work, technology procurement that they're working on. The third invoice is for CBRE. This is invoice number TJIN 0033554. The amount is for $60,000, and that is for project management services for the month of November. And the final invoice, this is an older invoice, but we just kind of got it recently. It was actually some work about a year ago that was done on St. Anne's, and it kind of took a while to get everything together from the subcontractors and get it all processed. And I think it got sat around for a little bit. So this is from a separate budget. So this invoice is in the amount of $11,330. So this is not part of the MSBA project budget, but this is a separate budget that was funded for this amount. And this is in accordance with the budget that we had established for that particular project. So those are the 4 invoices. The total amount here is $3,180,871. And we would ask for a vote. of approval
Okay.
for the invoices.
John Dunn, is it the St. Anne's bill? Is that appropriate that it goes through the building committee?
I don't think it really has to, Jonathan. And frankly, it could be a little bit confusing if it does. So I guess my preference would be that we take it out and that bill just gets forwarded to me so that I can pay it from the other budget.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Okay, so I would make a motion that we approve the 3 invoices for WT Rich, Doran Whittier, and CBRE Harry for a total amount of, I'm gonna do some quick math here, of
Yeah, I had included that because I thought we had approved those previously, but
yeah, I don't think so.
All right, so Jonathan, the math is for a total amount for the 3 invoices, $3,169,541.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve the 3 invoices for whatever John Dunn just said.
That's some good math from our CFO. Nicely done, Mr. Dunn.
Thank you.
That's why he gets the big bucks. And I so move.
Second,
Okay, there any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none. Yash, can we have a roll call vote?
So Jonathan Pope,
Yes.
thank you. Ben Lemis,
Yes.
thank you. Katie Clancy,
Yes.
thank you. Richard Safar,
Yes.
thank you. Matthew Fusco,
Yes.
thank you. Amy Pascarello,
Yes.
thank you. Grant Harris, Grant Harris,
Yes.
Yeah, there he is.
thank you. John Dunn,
yes,
thank you. Gary Frisch, thank you. Caitlin Nunes,
Yes.
thank you. Tony Gross,
Yes.
thank you. Stacy Capone,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Okay, it carries unanimously, and we can move on to the next item on the agenda, or do we want to jump ahead to the extra while people who are going to be leaving shortly at least could weigh in on the or understand what we're talking about if without objection. I'd like to move that up. Is that okay, Brian?
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. So the issue here is I'll tee it up and then you can take it off. We in the course of building the building, we're become aware that we may not have cell phone service throughout the entire building. It's something you could test for, but in reality, the tests aren't really completely valid until the building is up and running and there's electricity in the wires and the lights are on and all of that. And as of, even though none of those things are up and running yet, the cell phone service is spotty. So for us to put in amplifiers throughout the building, now is the time to do it. It would be considerably less than trying to retrofit it after the building's done. And the argument is that it's a safety issue of people having access to cell phones anywhere in the building. Any of you who've been to the high school know what a nuisance it is to be in a building where you have to go stand by a window or something to get cell phone service. So is that enough, Brian? You want to take it from there?
Yeah, I mean, you've pretty much covered it. We've been observing these things on site. It does come up on different projects. The signal, even outside, isn't the best. It's all right, but it hasn't been great, and it has continued to deteriorate as we've been enclosing the building. And a lot of the reason for that is because, you're building a very energy-type building that conserves the thermal energy within the building, and a lot of those same materials that are used are also materials that limit the amount of energy that can flow into the building, thus degrading like the signal from the cell phone. So we have been watching it, and like I said, as the building has been more and more enclosed, we've noticed the signal go down. Now that the windows are going in, we're seeing a significant difference. I had 2 calls today, actually with Ben, who's on the call here today, where we got cut off, and the call got dropped. So, and all the windows are not in right now. So we are anticipating that it's going to be a pretty big problem for the school. So I think Ben wanted to talk a little bit about how that affects the educational program and the importance that it has for the school. But I think Jonathan mentioned some of those things already as well. And then Grant's also on the call. We can talk about some of the technology items that we have. So
Great.
maybe turn it over to Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. So this can be really short. I mean, it's not really an educational program. It's just more of sort of daily communicating living. And as we think about this, staff will need to communicate with their families and others during the school day, during their work day, just like everyone else, at work needs to. And then also, we expect that there'll be, just like there was today at East Gloucester, a winter concert, there'll be concerts and plays and family events. And then also be community events, athletic events and others, where members of the community come in our school in East Veterans. And all those folks expect to have communication through their mobile phones, whether that's to stay in touch with someone at home or just to go about their daily lives, whether that's text or cell phone, phone usage. And so, as John pointed out, number of plays in Gloucester, cell phone spotty, and then Brian pointed out, new construction these days can really impact that a lot. And so we want to make sure that it's a fully usable, fully public building, and that these days really does mean cell service. So, Grant, if you can just help us know a little bit about how this how the repeater would work, and then I think we can move to the heart of the matter.
Sure. Yeah, the cell repeaters are very similar to, not similar, they are similar, exactly the same as the units that we have over the West Parish School. West Parish had the exact same problem due to geographical locations, poor cell reception with anywhere in the building. You can only make a call outside. The units have an antenna unit on the roof of the building that connects to additional repeaters and boosters throughout the facility to provide coverage inside the walls. And it's really all it is. It's a set it up, turn it on, and it broadcasts, and we don't manage it. It's a self-sustaining system. It connects directly with the carriers. We don't actually have to manage it. My staff will never have to manage it except for, to make sure it's turned on. So it's really a ubiquitous tool for the facility that we don't actually have to manage and operate on a daily basis.
So it's Brian, we are still talking about the same numbers? 100,000.
Yeah. So the cost, if we install this now, it was just over 100,000. So I'd say, we'll have to get an exact number, but somewhere between 100 and 130. But if we waited until after, the construction's finished, we'd be talking probably closer to, 130 to 160 once the final numbers are in. So it's definitely more cost effective to handle this up front. And, this is a challenge. We are dealing with a lot of extra costs, that come up on this project. And we also have to be able to complete the project on time and a budget. But we did review the numbers, and we feel comfortable that we could take on this additional cost and deliver this for the project. This is not something that would be reimbursed by the MSBA, but we would still be able to afford it out of the funds that we have available.
Okay, so essentially what that means is you'll remember that we made a lot of value engineering cuts early in the process, and with the hopes that we were going to be able to put some of these things back in down the road. We cut mostly things that would come in at the end of the building process. So the money is there, but we may not have money to put back as much as we had hoped. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, and that's true. And it definitely depends how things go. We're dealing with issues on site right now with, some delays, but, we should be able to manage that. And where we stand today, I'm hopeful that we will be able to bring back many of the things that we discussed even with this. But, we don't know exactly what the future will be.
There are delays and this and that, but as far as the unknown extras, those pop up at the beginning when you start digging in the ground, not so much after when you can't get to the right plumbing fixtures or whatever. It's gets as we go down the road, it gets more and more certain that we are within budget, correct?
Generally speaking, yes.
So how do we want to make this motion? Do we want a not to exceed number?
Yeah, let's do a not to exceed number, Jonathan.
Okay. And what would that number be, Brian?
130.
130. Okay, so I'll make a motion that we authorize the owner's project manager to proceed with procuring cell phone, I'm not sure what it's called, service amplifiers, or what do you call them, Grant?
They're repeaters.
Repeaters for the building for the amount of not to exceed $130,000, and I so move.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to say that based on a number of the reasons that Ben raised, it would almost be negligent in 2022 not to have full access to cell service, number one. But the overriding issue is safety and emergency response, because you just don't know if the phone systems go down or when something hits the fan. You need to maximize your capacity for communication.
Anything else?
I'd
Yeah.
like to say something. So I agree with Rich. And, I think with West Parish, we probably didn't realize the extent of what the problem would have been down the road. And we had to rectify it after. So we now know we've got an issue. So therefore, it's prudent to take care of it now. So it's not a hassle or a problem that we're trying to solve down the road, and it's not as expensive if we've tried to solve it down the road.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, if there's no further discussion, Yash, can we have a roll call vote?
Jonathan Pope,
Yes.
thank you. Ben Lemis,
Yes.
thank you. Katie Clancy,
Yes.
thank you. Richard Safar,
Yes.
thank you. Matthew Fusco,
Yes.
thank you. Amy Pascarello,
Yes.
thank you. Grant Harris,
Yes.
thank you. John Dunn,
Yes, and good evening.
thank you.
Evening, John.
Vivek Fish,
Yes.
Thank you. Caitlin Nunes,
Yes.
thank you. Tony Gross,
He's left.
okay. Stacy Capone,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, it carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And we'll go back to the agenda as for the monthly update, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
Thank you, Jonathan. Screen here. See our lovely photo here? Is that visible?
Yep.
Okay, good. So yeah, progress is continuing on the site. We've been very happy to see the windows and the glazing that's being installed on this image. You can see it on the 3rd floor on building A over here, the academic wing. You can also see the glazing in the curtain wall over where the library and the art room could be. And we even have the binder here in front by the kindergarten drop off. That's practically complete on the site. There's a small area that we'll be finishing up in the spring. So the schedule, has been tough. We have been hit with some more delays, but we are still projecting an on-time completion. We've been working through this by resequencing some of the work, bringing in additional work hours, such as Saturday work, and WT Rich has also been able to add some additional crew members. So I think with all of those things together, we should be able to manage. Some of those things are just ramping up, so I'm helpful. We'll see a positive impact within the next few weeks. In terms of the budget, we continue to track right within the budget, but we have to be careful managing our finances as we discussed. But overall, we're still in good shape. Progress in the building and building A, we're seeing a lot of the finishes going in. We have drywall, painting, and ceiling, and as I mentioned, the long-awaited windows. And building B, we're finishing up the MEP rough-in to the drywall to be installed. We should have some inspections coming up tomorrow and maybe Monday. And on the exterior, we have the curtain wall going in, and even the elevator is going in on the interior. And today we had some of the mechanical units being installed on the roof. So that's kind of an overview. If we look at the project activities, there's not really a lot that's changed here from last month. The team continues to work well together, and we're really rallying to overcome some of these obstacles and make sure we don't have cost increases or delays to the project. Looking at the project funds, you can see here we're getting to be a good way through the contracted work. We continue to have a healthy contingency, and that enables us to do things like we just discussed by adding that cellular service, something that's needed. There are these types of things that come up throughout the project. You think, oh, okay, that's something that we really should have in here. So it's nice when we can have funds to be able to accomplish some of those things. And you'll notice here the owner funds, that's still showing a pretty low number, but we do have to still add all the procurement for the furniture, the equipment, and the technology package. So that amount will, those amounts generally will be contracted from the first of the year. Right now on our contracts.
Hey, Brian, sorry.
You have a
Brian,
question, Ben? Yeah.
Yeah, can you just go back one slide there? So I think it looks like in terms of contingencies, right? Contingency, obviously built into the budget for, unforeseen circumstances, just, intentionally, right?
Yep.
So is that saying that 6% of the total budget is still unspent contingency? It's.
Yeah, as of this past update, that's correct.
Okay, all right. And so, but allocated, so originally 7% of the entire project budget was there for contingency, and 1% of that 7% has been. Is that right?
Has been used, yeah. 1% has been used, yeah.
Right, so that's.
So and keep in mind that this is, where we are today. So, we're aware of more costs at this point, but that aren't reflected on here. Those are things that are coming down the pipeline that we're tracking.
Mhm.
But this is where we are to date. And even with the things that were coming, we still are in good shape, and we expect to be able to complete this project within the budget.
Great, and that's the primary reason you can say to us tonight, for example, when we vote on the cell repeaters, that you guys are confident that we can fit that within the budget, right?
Yes.
Okay, helpful, thank you.
So contracts, not much change there with change orders. As I just mentioned, we do have a pipeline of things. So, we have quite a few. So the number that's shown there is both for debit and credit change orders. We've had nearly 100 proposed change orders to date. Actually, the number really is larger than that because many of them are consolidated into one. But as we just mentioned, we've been able to manage these things as they come up and still stay within the budget. And to date, we have the one change order that was approved quite some time ago. On the cash flow, you can see we continue to track up. Total project costs are around 35 million as of this last update. And we do have some good news there. So we finished getting the project funding agreement completed with the MSBA. So that was really a big deal. I think we talked a little bit about that before, that was coming after the lawsuit was resolved. So this month, we submitted our budget numbers, and we're looking to submit our first reimbursement request. That should be going out in the next week or so. So that first request is going to be for all the CM work to date. So that's about $30 million in our first request. So the MSBA is not paying for all of that, of course. They pay for a portion of it. Roughly, it's just over 60%. So we could expect a check for the city, and I would say, well over $15 million still this month. So that's a really big deal. The overall facilities grant for the project was set, the maximum was set at 26.9. So just with this first reimbursement, we're going to get over half of that. And we're also expecting that we'll have larger reimbursement in January and February. And then come March, we should be caught up with kind of the backlog of the reimbursement to where we expect to be. So all that's very good. Like I said, the costs are going up, but the reimbursements are going to start flowing in. So with the CM work, you can see it does go up and down. That varies from month to month, partly based on materials that are bought and delivered to the site. But generally, we're hovering around the $3 million mark, which is what our invoice was for this month as well. Again, just the different cash flow for the projects, and you'll see here in the owner that we are expecting that to go up quite a bit come the first of the year. But all of that has been taken into consideration. So looking at the schedule, we're definitely moving closer to the end of the construction, but we still have a significant amount of work to do. Right now, with the most recent update, we're tracking 6 days behind where we want to be. But as I mentioned before, these things are constantly changing, and we need to adjust to them as they happen. And we do have a lot of different things that have been done to address the schedule. As I mentioned, we've been increasing work on Saturdays. We have additional crews on site, and we've also been able to resequence work to keep work moving to the building, even when some of the items are delayed. So we're still confident at this point that we should be able to deliver the project on time. So also, this is our last school building committee for the year. The next one will be in January. So I was kind of thinking back, on the past 12 months, and I think we really have had a very productive and successful year together. If we think about it, we've been able to stay above water in an intense market climate. A lot of other projects have had budget busts, significant delays, labor shortages, and such. And we've also been able to maintain progress in the midst of a lawsuit. finalized the funding contract of almost $27 million grant. And on top of all that, we've been able to add items back into the project that we cut out during the value engineering stage in order to keep the project within the budget. So I think those are things that we can all be proud of and thankful for that. You know, things that worked out favorably for us in these accomplishments, and we're able to deliver now a nice facility for the people of Gloucester. So,
Hey, Brian, just one thing. I know it says -6 days, and you've already explained how, you know, the team's confident we can make that up as we go along. But say, for example, we didn't, okay, and we had 6 days over, okay. But it looks to me, but by looking again at the timeline here, that the initial deadline we're aiming for substantial completion is actually maybe late June. Is that right?
yeah, it's actually early June.
Early June.
And so substantial completion is when we get the certificate of occupancy. So after that, there is still work that needs to be done, but that means the building is basically ready to move in and occupy. So you could start using it.
Okay.
So, and as you're pointing out, there's still some room after that to get everything wrapped in. So that's when we'll be moving in furniture. We'll be doing punch lists, a lot of those other things. But the building should be ready to rock and roll come June.
Great. Okay. Super. Thank you. Thanks so much for that clarification.
Yep. Okay. Moving ahead, just some of the details of the activities that people have been involved in. So the OPM, we've been busy overseeing on-site work, reporting, coordinating owner activities, managing project costs, as we've talked about. And we've also been assisting with the procurement of the furniture, the technology, and the equipment that'll be getting started from the first of the year. Also working with the MSBA and helping the city with some coordination issues and the offsite traffic changes that were talked about previously. We're also continuing to manage relationships within the neighborhood. This past month, we really haven't had any issues. We did have an early start this morning, just getting a crane on site to put in some of the condensing units on the roof. But now that the building is enclosed, there's just really not that much noise that is disruptive. Also with the Saturdays, there haven't been really any complaints about that. So I think we're in pretty good standing in the community. Also today, the Gloucester Times was out on the site, which was nice. They wanted to report on some of the progress in building. So they tagged along with some of the high school students that were giving a tour. We had students that were involved in the electrical shop and in the carpentry work. And there were kind of two separate tours. So I think it was nice for those students to kind of get a firsthand view on what happens in the real world and see how these things come together, because it's pretty exciting, and it's something that you can't really capture in a classroom. So I'd like to thank W.T. Rich for making that possible, you know, handling some of that coordination and having their staff there and working with the subcontractors to get the students through the building. I think that worked out really well. On the designer, Doran Whittier continues to manage a lot of submittals, RFIs, requests for information, provides feedback on the proposed change orders and other project cost data. They're also out on the site regularly to observe the work and ensure that everything's being done in accordance with the contract documents and helping to resolve any coordination issues that arise. And then in parallel to this, they've also been working on the furnishings and technology packages. And as I mentioned, the equipment, they'll be doing that as well. They'll be beginning that probably come January of next year. So I'd like to turn it over to Doran Whittier to kind of give us an update on the work that they've been doing with that furniture procurement. We've had a lot of meetings, and they've been able to kind of manage the flow of this and keep us on track. And I thought it'd be good for the whole committee to kind of know what's been going on in that area. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Michelle and Josh who can give us an update on that.
Thank you, Brian. Josh is going to start sharing his screen if he can. I just want to say there's a small group of SBC members here that have been working, involved in what's called the Interiors Working Group. And they've been meeting regularly now for quite a while. And their work has included everything from, the big picture ideas of interior color themes to the smallest details of picking the basket that goes underneath the student desk. I mean, a huge wide range of tasks that they've been covering for quite a long time. In fact, the work for this began back in October of 2019, right after we had submitted our preferred schematic design. And as we stepped into the schematic design process at the time, we began what's called room data sheets, and these are required by the MSBA. And if you think about those, if you were to think about your own house plan and you wanted to lay out the furniture in your living room, you would draw a little plan and you'd place the couch and the TV and the side tables and the lamps, and that's what these plans do. We actually have to place the entertainment center and decide what kind of technology goes in that location and how do we get that there? How do we shape the furniture for all the tasks that are happening within classrooms? If you're going back to the living room analogy, you'd want to make sure that your living room could accommodate a large group of people for big entertainment or a smaller group. And you'd want to also make sure there's that little cozy corner that you can go off and read a book by yourself. So if you think about what these plans do, they actually do all of those things. And the kinds of conversations that we've had with not only the interiors group, working group, but also with the staff and the end users, all the people using these spaces. We've had meetings and meetings and meetings to make sure that all the tasks that they want to perform within these spaces are going to be accomplished and comfortable. So that's where we started. Josh has been phenomenal at keeping us all on task, including you, Matt. And
I try.
I know. And through this entire process, he has arranged a schedule and a way of going through each room and each space so that everybody has a chance to weigh in and give their opinions. And you'll see here, it wasn't just limited to administration and staff. The kids actually got to be involved in the process too, as they got to experiment with their desks and their wiggle stools and their chairs. So I'm going to turn this over to Josh and let him walk you through that entire process that we've gone through. And then as we wrap this up, we can talk about our next steps and how we get from where we are today to the day that the furniture arrives in the building.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Michelle. So just like Michelle was saying, I'll walk us through kind of our selection process from when we started to where we are now and hopefully where we're going. Talk briefly about the schedule, what's left to do, and our kind of final decisions that need to be made. And then we'll wrap it up with just where we are with the budget. So I'll start with the first thing, like Michelle had said, room data sheets were the first thing that we did early on in the project. These were in-depth meetings with the staff where we sat down and had pretty collaborative meetings with them, going over every space, starting off with some 3D spaces so the teachers could be really engaged. Did a lot of sketching and plan layouts, and that all translated to a pretty comprehensive set of plans that allowed us to continue to develop our drawings and create a basis for our budget and for the construction documents as we moved through the design process. Our second part of this process was started this fall after kind of the documents were all set and construction had started. So we had taken those room data sheet information and all the furniture decisions that were talked about in provided a kind of furniture fair for both the schools where we got a collection of tables, chairs, desks, assortment of furniture, and provided both schools with sets of furniture for over a month to really kind of sit in and test out the furniture. We really encouraged the staff and the students to try out the furniture, and even provided them a online Google document where teachers could go on and provide their own feedback, so we could look at it as our selection group and make refinements from those comments from them. But generally, it was a very hands-on process. They were able to kind of test out things, swap out furniture if we realized things weren't working for some of the teachers. It was a pretty engaging process. And during that process, what we've been doing for the last couple of months has been the furniture selection. So these have been weekly meetings with the selection team where we have reviewed the furniture, reviewed the furniture layouts. These also included looking at product data, cost comparisons, samples, getting new samples, checking out alternative samples, and developing alternative plan layouts based on some of the furniture we were selecting. All of this information has been really helpful for the group and us to make informative, qualitative decisions as we've kind of wrapping up this process in the next week or so, and really kind of come to the end of that process where we're almost finished selecting the furniture and the finishes and layouts, and that it'll allow us to finalize everything, have our layouts, have our furniture selected for the spaces, and really kind of move into the next phase of our schedule for furniture. So for us, in regards to furniture, our schedule is this for the rest of the process. So once we get through these last few weeks of furniture selection, Dorn Woody will take over the documentation where we will do our specifications and front end work, and then have final sign-offs with the owner. And then we will send these specifications to the vendors that we've been working with in late January for them to give us a final pricing. Once we get that final pricing back in February, Dorn Whittier can review, we can send it off to the city for recommendation and review, and then hopefully the city will issue that purchase order. And then that'll give us about 16 weeks of furniture manufacturing with install for 2 weeks towards the end of June, with obviously fluctuation based on how our overall construction budget goes.
Josh,
Yep.
Josh, if I can interrupt you, I think Stacy has a question.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Stacy.
It's okay. So Josh, I just want to clarify. So this furniture is being purchased through that program that was discussed early on, through like,
Yep.
was it Combis or something like that?
Yeah, so the MSBA is working with MHEC's state contract.
MCC, yes.
Yeah, so everything will be state contract. And we'll be sending over just the quotes from them with the front end information.
Perfect. And they'll all state like MHEC on them.
Yep,
And so
it'll tell you what MHEC program it is and all of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
So that's roughly the schedule. Right now, we do have the window of 16 weeks for manufacturing. I'm trying to stay in contact with the vendors, making sure that lead times aren't fluctuating. Right now, they are seeing it come back down to normal, where it's between an 8 and 12-week lead time. So this does give us some fluff in case something unforeseen happens with the, I don't know, delivery or manufacturing, or another part of the schedule. But it's just built in kind of cushion for us. And speaking with all the manufacturers, this seems to be a appropriate schedule as we continue forward.
Yeah, Josh, we got started on this, I think, earlier than we would have on other projects, in order to make sure we didn't have issues with some of these lead times. So the fact that they're normal, that's good. That gives us some extra time if we do need it, right?
Yeah, I think we kicked this off in the early fall. Our first round of scheduling was a little bit more aggressive, but as we kept going through the process and seeing where things going and talking with the manufacturers, it alleviated some of the initial concerns of lead times and stuff like that. So as we've kind of gotten to this point and continue to talk to them, this has been a nice kind of zone for them. This is earlier than we typically have done it in the past, just to be on the safer side for unseen lead time issues.
Yeah, and I also want to point out that, Josh has been trying to manage this not only from our side to the district, but also with the vendors, and making sure that we hit that sweet spot, so that when everything arrives, it's going to arrive exactly on time. There's no additional fees that we're going to have to pay for storing. So
Right.
Originally, we thought we were going to have to order in advance because all the lead times were looking so long. And the closer we got to this, the more we kept hearing, if we can order this, but once it arrives, you then have to pay for storage. So that's why we've been moving this schedule. It's been a little bit fluctuating over the course of the last 6 or so weeks as we've learned more from our reps.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, generally from the manufacturers and the vendors, it seems like things have started to stabilize the more we've kind of creeped out of that kind of COVID era. Because it has been a kind of chaotic process during COVID to procure furniture. So I'll move on to our budget and we can kind of talk about where we are.
I was going to suggest right before you go to the budget, go back
Yep.
one slide and just explain all the exciting stuff that you're getting in these classrooms here, because I think it's really interesting that these classrooms are going to be fitted out with some great furniture. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, this process, like I said, with all the sampling, it's really been a very collaborative process. We've tried to be very engaging and kind of listen to what everyone wants and needs for these spaces. We're trying to be very flexible and think about the future with the type of furniture we're purchasing and what might be needed for the future. So that might be in regards to having individual desks versus group tables, having mostly student chairs, but also providing some more fun alternative chairs to allow for some movement for some of those kids that need that kind of extra stimulation, as well as some opportunities for a change in environment. So we are providing some comfortable upholstered seating throughout the building. As you know, each classroom does have a built-in upholstered window seat. Those type of features just provide each space within the school a lot of opportunity for flexibility and change in environment, that I think working with this group has really been stressed. And obviously we want to make sure it's what we need and what we think will work for everyone going forward. So yeah,
On
so
the budget.
yeah.
So one of the things that as we move into the budget that you'll see in just a moment is that we did switch from multi-person desks or tables to single user desks. And it did have an impact on our original budget. That budget was established almost 2 years ago when we first began talking about this, right around the schematic design process is when you establish your furniture budget. And as we moved through the process and began to pick out additional furniture, we actually began to think about the flexibility of a single user desk, especially, you know, in the times that we've looked at recently, going through this COVID process and being able to move the desks around in different groups as well as make them single user. That was one of the biggest impacts on our budget as we moved forward.
Yeah. But so to just reiterate what Michelle was saying, we established our original budget pre-COVID. Those were derived from what we had discussed earlier, the room data sheets, which helped us kind of curate a FF&E budget based on historical data trends, obviously not foreseeing a COVID. So that means that our budget is tracking 196,000 over the original established budget. Two of the main factors being during COVID, furniture manufacturers saw 15 to 25% year over year inflation costs. There was added 5 to 10% surcharges on top of that. That kind of really increased the pricing of all furniture as through the COVID era. One of the other big elements of the overage on the budget was the change from the library shelving being in the construction budget and moved into the FF&E budget as a cost savings for the project overall. The library book shelving is coming in at $77,000, but that's a cost savings of $23,000 by moving it out of the construction budget, because we were able to take advantage of some of the cost savings from the MSBA and state contracts to get a more competitive price than if we went through the construction budget. But it does add to the FF&E budget that wasn't accounted for in our original budget. Though as we finish up this process, Stacy was saying, we are working with the MSBA and state contracts that allow us to have receive discounting pricing that's otherwise not available to non-MSBA members. We are still working on reviewing some of the furniture and making sure we're making cost-effective decisions, but obviously not impairing any quality as we do it. And again, we're nearing the end of this where we're going to start trying to get final budget numbers. So the budget is kind of in its final stages of becoming solidified. So the budget fluctuating more than this isn't really a foreseeable thing in my mind. So I'll wrap it up there, and I'll open it up to questions.
I think one last thing to point out is that the graph on the right-hand side does show that the MSBA is still, your contribution is less than 50% of the overall budget. So the MSBA is still, their budget is still covering a large portion of your FF&E. I think Stacy has a question.
Oh, hi, Stacey.
I think your hand's up still from before, right?
Oh, it's still up.
Oh,
okay.
I don't know how to undo it.
Maybe click it again.
Click the hand. Oh, wait, I'm back to my.
There you go.
There you go.
Did I get it? Okay.
Does anybody else have questions or comments?
I'd just like to add a few things. So first of all, I wanted to thank Michelle and Josh for putting this together and giving us the update. I think that was very informative. Kind of shows all the work that's been going into this, which has been quite a bit. It's been going on for quite a big time. to the last element on the budget, we have been in conversations with them all the way through this, participating in meetings, talking about this, the fact that, we're 200,000 over. All those things have been taken into consideration when I gave you the numbers earlier, and we talked about adding things back into the project. So we've been tracking with that. As Michelle and Josh both pointed out, there are very specific reasons why the costs are over, not just with the changes from COVID, but also incorporating the library shelving. And the big decision was to switch to the single desk. So as we've been going through this process, we have been looking for ways to manage the money and, to save where we can, but we have decided this is, a very important element for the school to have the right furniture and to have quality furniture that's going to last a long time. So we've made decisions with that in mind, and, we've looked to absorb these costs in other ways. So I feel very good about this whole process. Josh has done a nice job of keeping it organized as we've gone through it. And as he said, we should be able to wrap this up by the beginning of the year and be able to execute those contracts to get the stuff in on time. So thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else have questions or any comments on any of it? Not all. Move on. Okay. Thank you, guys. If you can stop sharing your screen, thank you.
Yep.
And screen. Okay, so we talked about design work. So moving on to the CM, well, they continue to be very busy managing the work on site and really, working to resolve issues that are coming up related to the project costs, coordination, delays. As I mentioned before, we have had a fair amount of challenges with the late window deliveries, which has impacted other work on the job as well. And there also have been coordination issues that have needed to be addressed to keep the project moving forward. So we've been filling in these milestones as we've been going through month by month. You'll see some of them are ahead of the schedule and some of them are behind schedule. But overall, we've been able to continue to make good progress on the job. And like I said, we are anticipating an on-time completion. You'll see the roof, that one still isn't complete. It was originally targeted for August, but the reality is that roof has been weather tight for some time, and it's basically just about finished. We had to do some curbing for the units that are being installed on the roof, and we expect that the roof work should be finished by next week. So overall, here's where we are on the schedule. Really not in bad shape, but we will need to knuckle down to get all this work completed in time. So I'd like to turn it over to WT Rich to give us our flight for the day. Then I'll strap in and go on our drone shoot. Alex, can you pull that up for us?
Can you see that?
Yep.
All right. So drone video from Monday, excuse me. So as you can see, we got the last piece of binder in down here. Mouse, this is the bus loop, the final bus loop. So you can kind of see how the site circulation, the final site circulation has come into view. So you can see the 360 degrees around the building, the bus loop, as I mentioned before, and then you have the playground area sort of out back here where we're using that as sort of our storage and lay down area at the moment. You can see off in the distance, the RTU curves, as Brian mentioned, have been set. We're expecting the rooftop units themselves to be delivered just after the new year, which is a pretty big milestone for us. The roof's on everywhere. We're working on getting windows in. As you'll see as we turn the corner here, We do have temp protection, temp tarping in a lot of these areas, just to keep the building enclosed. We've started heating, as you can imagine, so we can get a lot of the interior finishes going. But yeah, as Brian mentioned again before, the windows are starting to go in. Just this week, we've got a good amount of windows in. I'd say we probably have 60 to 70% of them in at this point, which is obviously helping contain a lot of the temporary heat in the building at the moment. So you can see the areas of brick that we've talked about before. This is the large curtain wall off the extended learning area that's starting to get glazed. And then this wall is a metal wall panel wall similar to what you saw out front. So we're turning the corner to B. You can see the gymnasium, that large B building, as we call it, starting to get finished off from an exterior finishes perspective. You can start to see the porthole windows in the gymnasium. Those are starting to get framed as well. They're actually all framed as of today. So this is sort of the last piece of brick and masonry facade that we need to get onto the building to kind of wrap up that activity on the new school.
And are those, is the mason coming back next week?
Yeah, he's scheduled to be back next week. So again, making our way on the eastern side of the site, you can see the circulation path. Again, majority of parking along this crescent area of the blacktop. And then this actually becomes a sort of a bioretention, water retention runoff pond at the end of the project that we're, again, using as laydown and storage space. So front of the building, just to kind of wrap things up here, metal wall panels will clad this area, which is the media center and art room. You've got a large 2-story curtain wall here that we're starting to install as well. And yeah, again, just trying to wrap up the exterior stuff to the best of our ability before winter comes, both site work and any building facade activities that we have. Interior wise, which we'll show you next month through our walkthrough, is in pretty good shape in A building. We should be getting that millwork and casework that Josh showed in his presentation earlier. So that should be arriving in the next couple of weeks, and we'll start with flooring and ceramic tile as well. So finish activities well underway in A building and getting rough in completed in B building to start boarding that area. Take any questions if anyone has any.
I just want to make one note. The pond is a dry pond. There's no standing water except after heavy rain, which it just slows down the water and then it goes into the system. And the pond is dry within 24 hours. I want to be clear that that's not a pond as we think about it.
No fishing.
No fishing. It's about an inch of water.
Thank you, Michelle, for that. I just that's a good clarification. Very helpful. So Alex, can this video be, I think we have a shared folder for photos or something. Can that be put in or have access to? So we can put it on the website, and also I can show it at Kathy and I can show it at school committee next week.
Definitely.
Okay, great.
It's actually a YouTube link that's public, Ben.
That's helpful.
So I can send you the file or I can send you the link either.
No, the link is
or-
great. Yeah,
okay.
link is the best way to do it.
Perfect.
Thank you. You can copy Amy Pascarello on that too. That'd be helpful.
You got it.
And me, please.
Oh, and Kathy. They're great. Thank you.
So I have a question. Are you the drone operator?
I'm not.
You're not?
Why do you ask?
That's pretty cool. Very cool.
I'm not licensed.
Okay.
I'd crash it
But it is-
somewhere for sure.
But it is someone on your team, right?
Oh yeah,
Steve.
definitely.
He
Yep.
does that.
I love these drone videos.
Yeah, they're
really-
awesome.
They
I
really
mean,
capture the progress.
the last piece of binder, like I mentioned, really kind of shows the circulation around the building now at this point. But yeah, it's a good tool for sure.
All right. Thank you, Alex.
Sure.
Okay, well, that pretty much concludes what we have to report on for tonight. So we can take any questions if there are any, or if there's any new business that needs to be brought up.
I just want to, it's not really new business, but just a quick thing is just really thank Matt and Amy, and then also Christy Lambert, who's our assistant principal at East Gloucester and Vets. And they're doing a lot of work with our staff, our faculty, also with me and others, just on making sure that the staff are working together, coming together, getting to know each other. They had a fun outing on our early release day, a scavenger hunt, which so folks were showing up all over the city, just working together from the two schools, having fun with that. But then also really looking at the, staffing of budget or special education programs or instructional practice. And so, that's been underway since last spring or last winter. And, another thing was also just bring the two parent communities together as well. And I had a photo to show from a recent parade, which I think I can do that if I can share. Can I share my screen? Yeah. If Marie.
Maria's-
Hold on one second, Ben.
Great, thank you.
It is worth the wait.
I know, it really is.
I hope so.
All set.
So this is, can people see that? Is that-
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, that's in the back there is that's Matt Fusco, if you can't recognize him there in the scarf, playing the bass with former school committee member Joel Favaza. And then this is at the Santa Claus Parade in downtown Gloucester. Last Sunday, it was a joint parade float made by the East Gloucester team there and also the Vets team. Matt, can you remind me again the student's name?
That's Brandon Blatchford's the lead singer, and on drums, Brandon was one of my veteran students, and on drums was Henry Goulart, who's a sixth grader now. He went to East Gloucester. He was one of Amy's students.
Right, and Brandon and Henry, I think, both performed at our beam signing ceremony.
Yes. So
And now they play at places like the Middle East. So, but
yeah,
see that it was that was one part of the float, but the highlight I probably anyway, but
well,
also
you didn't hear us play, so
that's true. I did. No, but in all seriousness, really appreciate the efforts of led by Matt, Amy, and Christy, but so many other folks who are really paying attention, not only the building, but also the people, which of course will make the building sing. So thanks so much, guys.
Was that pun intended? Make the building sing?
No,
Maybe.
my puns are never intended.
It was a good one.
If I could just add to I've been working with the teams at Dorn Whittier and WT Rich and Brian and everyone. We've had actually a lot of fun, believe it or not, and lots of working together. And I'm just awed by how dedicated and intelligent all of you are. So that's been a real joy to work with all of you. So wish you all a great holiday, and I'm looking forward to working with you the rest of the way through.
Absolutely.
There you go. Nice.
Thank you.
And my attentional issues notwithstanding, they understand me now. So
All right. So I guess that's it. And this will be our last meeting. So I want to wish everyone a wonderful holiday season. And
You
look forward
too.
to seeing you in January.
Yeah, same here.
Okay.
Thanks, folks.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, everybody. And I hope everybody has a good break at holiday break, and we'll be right back at it the first of the year. So
Do we need to
thank
a
you very
motion?
much.
Motion
Motion to adjourn?
Need a roll call?
Motion adjourned?
Second.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote? Yes, for the adjournment.
Jonathan Pope,
Yes.
thank you. Ben Lemus,
Yes.
thank you. Katie Clancy. Thank you. Richard Safar,
Yes.
thank you. Matthew Fusco,
yes.
thank you. Amy Pascarello,
Yes.
thank you. Grant Harris,
Yes.
thank you. John Dunn,
He's gone.
okay. Gary Fish,
Yes.
thank you. Caitlin Nunes,
Yes.
thank you. Stacy Capone,
Yes.
thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you. Josh.
Two.
Take care,
Good
folks.
night.
We'll
Thank
see
you.
you.
Good
This
night.
meeting's adjourned, and thank you all very much.
Bye.
Thank you.